The ayes have it. These bills are set down for third reading next sitting day. Called Government Order of the Day number 4.
Building Amendment Bill number 4, second reading.
Honourable Maurice Williamson.
Mr Speaker, I move that the Building Amendment Bill number 4 be now read a second time. Mr Speaker, the bill has now been considered by the Local Government and Environment Committee, chaired by the very good member Nicky Wagner, and I thank the committee for its careful consideration of the bill. I also want to acknowledge the work of all of the members of that committee, who I believe have brought some well thought out amendments back to the House that I think will both refine and improve the original bill that was introduced. The committee received 47 written submissions and heard 23 oral submissions, and overall there was very much support for the fundamental policies in the bill, support which demonstrates the importance of these changes that reflect the efforts the government has made during our extensive consultation on the review of the Building Act to listen to the voices of all those participating in the building and construction sector. And may I take this moment to preempt Raymond Ho, because he will get up and tell everybody how everybody out there in the building sector is opposed. And all I ask Mr Ho to do is name one. Name one. Master builders? No, they're in favour. Certified builders? No. Building Industry Council? No, they support. So when Mr Ho speaks, I hope everyone listening to him speaking will temper his question of everyone is opposed by saying name one. Name one that's opposed. However, I divert from the written speech, so I shall go back to it. The Select Committee listened closely to concerns raised about whether the drafting of the bill would achieve the outcomes that the government seeks to achieve. Particular areas of concern raised in submissions were the clarity of the proposed new consumer protection provisions and the changes to the dam safety scheme. As a result of submissions, the Select Committee has recommended a number of improvements and clarifications for the drafting to better achieve the government's policy intent and address the concerns that actually were raised at the committee. And I, sir, have to say, fully support the recommendations that this Select Committee brought back to the House. I'd like to thank all the people who took time to make submissions and express their views on the bill. I also want to thank my officials who have worked diligently and effectively on the drafting of the bill and giving advice to the Select Committee. Mr Speaker, I'm proud to commend this bill and the Select Committee amendments to the House. This bill is a key part of a package of reforms designed to achieve a significant cultural and behavioural shift in the building and construction sector. Together with changes already made in the Building Amendment Act 2012, the enactment of this bill will enable the government to lead the sector to a stable platform from which we can build the skills of practitioners, have confidence that buildings will be built right the first time, and be sure that designers and builders will stand behind the quality of their work. Achieving these objectives is important to help with rebuilding of Christchurch, of course, but it's important increasing the productivity of the entire building sector. The building sector is a significant part of our economy. It employs about 8% of our workforce and contributes about 4% of our gross domestic product. Increased productivity in this sector will contribute significantly to this government's business growth agenda. Mr Speaker, I would like to outline some of the key changes that have been made to the bill by the Select Committee. The major reform in the bill is new provisions for consumer protection. The establishment of improved consumer rights is an important precondition for introducing risk-based consenting. If we are going to allow builders to take more responsibility for their work and reduce the involvement of councils to cut bureaucratic costs, we need to ensure consumers have the necessary tools to hold builders to account. The consumer protection provisions in the bill, as introduced, were not completely clear about who can use the provisions and what types of building work are covered. While the policy intent of the consumer protection provisions was supported by the people who made submissions, some issues were raised in relation to the clarity and the detail of the new provisions. For example, builders were not sure if their subcontractors could use the provisions against them, and designers were not sure whether their work would be subject to the new provisions. Some submissions also ask for more detail to be included in the bill about information to be given to the client by building contractors and the content of the mandatory written contracts. The Select Committee has recommended changes to clarify the following issues. The consumer protection provisions do not apply to the relationship between head contractors and subcontractors. The provisions are intended for the benefit of the client, that is the homeowner. The commercial trade arrangements between a head contractor and their subcontractors are not regulated under the Building Act. Design work is not subject to the consumer protection provisions. The bill does not limit the application of other consumer protection legislation that relates to the provision of design services. The purposes of the checklist and disclosure information required to be given to the client has now been clarified. This includes listing in the bill some of the topics that could be included in those documents, though the topics will be set out in detail in regulations later. The checklist and disclosure information are only required to be given if the building work is over a certain value, but if the work is less than that value, the client can still request, and the building contractor must provide the checklist and the disclosure information. The matters that should be covered by the mandatory written contracts, and further clarifying that when a contract that does not contain a matter required by the regulations, it will be deemed to include any clauses stipulated in the regulations. This allows parties the freedom to contract as they please, but ensures crucial topics, such as disputes resolutions, are always covered by the contract. The other key change in the bill is to dam safety provisions. These provisions are intended to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of the dam safety scheme and reduce compliance costs for the owners of low-risk dams. The submissions received expressed support for the dam safety scheme as a risk management scheme for large dams, but it raised issues relating to technical detail and requested further clarity about the application of the dam safety scheme. The Select Committee has recommended changes that will provide consistency in the terminology used in the dam safety scheme, provide a specific approach for classifying and manage the safety of canals under the dam safety scheme, enable regional authorities to address critical issues in dam safety by reinstating references to earthquake-prone dams and flood-prone dams, allow regional authorities to refer dams for inclusion in the dam safety scheme if they pose a risk to public safety because they are in a designated area, and in the context of reporting dangerous dams, clarify that a recognised engineer is not required to act outside of what would normally be expected of their role. Collectively, sir, these changes will further improve the targeting of higher risk dams that should be subject to the requirements of the dam safety scheme and improve its administration. Mr. Speaker, the Select Committee also recommended other clarifications such as refinements to Schedule 1 to ensure potentially high-risk work is not exempt, a new Section 14G outlining the responsibilities of product manufacturers and suppliers under the Act, which is consistent with other responsibility provisions that are enacted in the Building Act of 2012. The changes recommended by the Select Committee make clear the decisions made by the Cabinet on the Building Act review and resolves the issues raised in the submission. And lastly, some sections have been amended by both this bill and also the Building Amendment Act 2012, because, sir, the Building Act 2012 is not yet fully in force. The Select Committee has recommended the amendments be replicated in this bill. This will ensure the affected sections will read the same once both bills are in force. I support all the recommendations being made by the Select Committee, and I'd like to thank again the members of that committee for their hard work in ensuring that we get this vital piece of legislation right for our building and construction sector. So, Mr. Speaker, in summary, I'm pleased to see the support and the public interest the bill has received. Indeed, the view of most in the sector that I've talked to in recent weeks is that a cultural and behavioural shift is needed more to move this industry forward, and this bill provides that with the consumer protection elements in it. I understand the quality of submissions received from all participants in the sector was incredibly high, again reflecting the significance and the importance of delivering these reforms to the overall building sector. And finally, sir, the effort that was put into helping the government fine-tune the bill was well received by all of the members of that committee and certainly by us as Minister. Mr Speaker, I move the Building Amendment number 4 bill be now read a second time.
The question is that the motion be agreed to.
Mr Speaker.